My beloved child, there is a reason this message found you at this exact moment. And if you feel even a small pull in your heart right now, do not ignore it. Because something unexpected has already begun moving quietly around your name. Something subtle, something you cannot yet see clearly, but something that is no longer standing still. Not long ago, in a place you could not see, your name entered a conversation you were never supposed to hear. It was not spoken casually. It was not mentioned without emotion or meaning. It came up in a way that immediately changed the atmosphere, like the air itself became heavier for a moment. It was carried carefully, almost like someone was holding something fragile in their words, something difficult to explain, something they had kept inside for longer than anyone realized. And the person who spoke about you did not choose just anyone to listen. They chose a family member, someone they trusted, someone who would understand the weight behind what was being said. That alone matters more than you think, because people do not bring your name into family conversations unless what they feel has reached a level they can no longer hide or control. Stay with this, because what was shared about you was not ordinary at all. At first there was silence before they began speaking, a hesitation that stretched a little too long, a pause that revealed how deeply they had been thinking before ever opening their mouth. The family member noticed it immediately. They could tell this was not a random discussion or a passing thought. Something inside that person had already shifted before your name was even spoken. Then your name finally came out, softly and carefully, almost as if saying it too quickly would reveal too much. And in that moment, something in the room changed. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet and undeniable way, like the energy itself adjusted to what had just been revealed. Because behind that one moment was a truth they had not shared with many people. A truth they had kept hidden behind ordinary behavior, behind normal conversations, behind days that looked completely unchanged on the surface. But inside, something had already become impossible to ignore. Do not rush past this, because what came next was even more revealing. They admitted that your presence had stayed in their thoughts longer than they expected it to. They admitted that even when they tried to focus on other things, something kept pulling their attention back to small details about you. The way you spoke, the way you stayed silent at times, the way certain moments around you felt different compared to anyone else. And what surprised the family member most was not just that your name was mentioned, but how serious the tone became afterward. Because this person was not speaking like someone curious or casually interested. They were speaking like someone affected. Like someone trying to understand something they could not fully explain. Why your absence felt noticeable. Why your image kept returning without warning. Why certain times of the day suddenly felt connected to memories that did not have a clear beginning. As they spoke, the family member listened more carefully, because they realized this was not simple admiration. This was something deeper, something that carried weight, something that was still forming in real time inside that person's mind. And then came a sentence that changed the entire direction of the conversation. They said quietly that something about you feels rare, not loud, not obvious, just rare. And strangely enough, even they seemed surprised hearing themselves say it out loud. Like the moment the words left their mouth, they became more real than they expected. Because some truths only fully exist when they are spoken. Until then, they stay half hidden, even from the person feeling them. The family member asked a simple question. What is it about this person that stays with you? And the answer did not come quickly. Because feelings like this do not arrive in neat language. They do not organize themselves into easy explanations. There was silence again. Longer this time. And then came something unexpected. They said they could not fully explain it, but being near your energy created something calm and powerful at the same time. Not overwhelming, but noticeable. Something that stayed even after distance returned. Something that did not fade quickly the way other impressions usually do. They said your presence did not leave easily. Even after conversations ended, even after days passed. Even when they tried to move their attention elsewhere, your name still returned in their thoughts without effort, as if it belonged there more than they were ready to admit. Stay with this, because this part matters. The family member then asked if they had ever told you any of this, and immediately the answer was no. No, because they were unsure if speaking would change everything. No, because when something feels important, fear often appears beside it. Fear of misunderstanding, fear of timing, fear of revealing too much before knowing how it would be received. So they stayed quiet outwardly. But inwardly, they had already reached a point where silence was no longer comfortable. And that is exactly why your name reached family before it reached you. Because sometimes people test their truth in safer spaces before they face the person connected to it directly. Do not skip this part, because something even more revealing followed. The family member smiled and asked whether this feeling had grown slowly or arrived suddenly. And the answer came almost immediately. It began quietly, but now it feels impossible to ignore. That one sentence changed the atmosphere again, because now even the listener understood this was no longer a passing thought. It had become something steady, something real, something that had been building in the background while you were not aware of it. And perhaps while you were living your normal days, you were also sensing something in the background. Small shifts, subtle pauses in energy, moments that felt unfinished for no clear reason. Times when something inside you wondered why certain things felt different lately, even if nothing obvious had changed on the outside. Because before words ever arrive, awareness begins quietly. People recognize presence before they understand it. And hearts sometimes register movement long before the mind can explain it. This conversation did not end there. The family member leaned in and asked one final question. Do you think this person knows? Again, silence. Again, hesitation. And then came the most unexpected reply. I think they feel something, but not the full truth. That answer revealed more than they intended. It suggested there is already a silent connection, a subtle awareness, a thread that is not fully spoken, but is quietly present between both sides. And whether you noticed it through glances, pauses, unfinished moments, or unexplainable shifts, something has been forming beneath the surface of ordinary days. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply, very deeply. And this is why this message matters now. Because while you continue your days normally, someone has already crossed an inner threshold where your name carries meaning beyond what they expected. Your name is now entering places where serious thoughts are being formed. Your name is now present in moments where future possibilities are being quietly considered. Your name is now part of conversations that are no longer casual. After the conversation ended, the family member gave a calm piece of advice. Not forceful, just steady. If something about this person is true in your heart, do not wait too long to understand it clearly. And those words stayed behind. Because when someone else voices what is hidden inside, it often makes feelings louder than before. Now the silence around your name is no longer empty. It carries reflection, thought, questions, and possibility. Even if nothing has appeared clearly on the outside yet, something has already shifted inwardly. You are being remembered more seriously than you realize. You are being considered more carefully than you know. You are being held in thought with more weight than has been expressed out loud. Sometimes the first sign that something meaningful is forming is not a confession or a sudden action. It is something quieter. It is your name reaching someone's family before it reaches your ears. Because that means the feeling has already grown strong enough to leave silence behind. And once silence is broken in one place, it rarely stays closed everywhere else. What has been spoken cannot return to being unspoken. What has been admitted cannot return to being unfelt. And what has started forming may now begin moving closer than expected. So stay observant, stay calm, because quiet things often become clear without warning. And when they do, you will understand why this message reached you exactly at this moment. Something has already begun unfolding around your name, and even after everything became quiet again, your name did not disappear from the room. It stayed there, in the background of thought, echoing longer than expected, settling deeper than intended, continuing to exist in memory even after the conversation ended. Because sometimes, what is said once does not stay in the past. It continues living in the mind of the person who heard it. It returns again and again throughout the day, not because it is forced, but because it carries meaning that has not been fully processed yet. They went back to those words later, not just once, but repeatedly, as if trying to understand why speaking about you created such a strong internal response. Because often a person does not realize the true weight of their feelings until they hear them reflected back through their own voice. And that realization changes everything, quietly. It does not always show on the surface immediately, but internally it creates movement that cannot easily be reversed. Even the family member noticed it. Later, they asked again about you, not out of curiosity, but because they sensed something was still unfinished in the earlier conversation. And this time, the question was simpler. Are you thinking seriously about this person? There was no quick answer, only a long pause. And in that pause, the truth already existed. And what came next was spoken carefully, almost like something that had been held back for too long. They admitted that your name has begun appearing in unexpected moments, during ordinary routines, during quiet evenings, even during unrelated conversations. And what surprised them most was how naturally your memory returns without effort. Not searched for, not forced, just there, present, persistent, quietly becoming part of their inner world in a way they are still trying to understand. That family member listened closely and then asked if anything specific had caused this change. They wanted to understand what had shifted inside the person. Was it something you said, something you did, or a recent moment that changed everything? But the answer they gave was not what anyone expected. They said there was no single moment that caused it. Instead, they tried to explain it in a different way. It feels like I suddenly understood something that was always quietly there in the background, something I just never noticed clearly before. That sentence carried more meaning than they realized at the time. It was not about a sudden feeling. It was about slow recognition building over time until it could no longer be ignored. It was as if something had always been there, beneath the surface, and only now had it risen into awareness. And once that awareness arrived, everything started to feel different. Even small things changed meaning. Your smile felt more important. Your silence felt more meaningful. Even ordinary memories started to feel stronger than before. The family member listened carefully, and then asked if they had ever imagined a future where you were still present in their life. At first, there was a small laugh, like they were trying to avoid how serious the question felt. But the laughter did not last. It faded quickly, and what remained was honesty. They admitted that yes, more than once, they had thought about it. That answer changed the tone of the entire conversation, because imagining someone in your future is never something meaningless when it is said out loud. It means your name has already entered deeper thoughts, places where serious feelings begin to form. It means your presence is no longer just part of memory. It has become part of possibility, and that possibility was not ignored. It was being observed quietly, carefully, and in a way that felt more serious than before. There was another detail that came after this, something they almost hesitated to share. Recently, even small things had started reminding them of you. A sentence spoken by someone else, a familiar location seen in passing, a song playing at the wrong time. Even simple everyday moments suddenly carried your image without warning. What confused them most was not the reminders themselves, but the intensity of them. They felt stronger than before, almost as if something inside had become more awake. The family member listened, and then said something that stayed in the room. They said that when someone starts appearing in ordinary moments without being invited, it usually means they already matter more than expected. Those words created silence, because truth often feels different when it comes from someone outside your own emotions. After hearing that, they became quiet, more thoughtful. It was as if they were realizing that what they had been trying to ignore had already grown beyond simple denial. Something was already changing inside them, whether they were ready or not. Before the conversation moved further, there was another statement that shifted everything again. They admitted that they had tried to dismiss these feelings before. They tried to label them as temporary. They tried to convince themselves that it was nothing important. But each attempt failed. Because your name kept returning. Not fading, not disappearing, returning stronger each time. And now, instead of becoming weaker, the feeling had become clearer, more defined, more difficult to ignore. The family member then said something else that added even more weight to the moment. When someone reaches the point where they can no longer treat their thoughts as ordinary, they begin to see everything differently. Even small details start to stand out. Even simple moments start to feel meaningful in ways they cannot fully explain. And that change had already started. The way you speak, the way you pause, the way certain moments around you feel different without reason. All of it had become noticeable in a new way. Even if not fully understood, it was now being felt more clearly than before. There were moments where this shift could already be sensed, even without explanation. Moments where something felt slightly different, but impossible to describe. That is because silent thoughts often move first, long before anything is spoken. Then came another question before the conversation ended. If this became real one day, would it change your life? The answer came immediately, yes. No hesitation, no extra explanation, just one clear word. And sometimes, a simple answer like that reveals more than a long speech ever could. Because it comes from a deeper place where feelings are already settled, even if unspoken. It showed that your presence was not being considered lightly. It was already being felt in a way that reaches into future thinking. After that, the conversation did not fully end, but something continued inside it. A shift had taken place, a new awareness, a quiet seriousness that could not be reversed. It was no longer possible to treat your name the same way again, and that is why this moment mattered. Even if everything outside still looked normal, something had already changed internally. Your name had already moved into deeper reflection. You were being thought of with more weight. You were being remembered with more care. The words spoken about you could not simply disappear. They now existed in another mind, in another space of memory, and in another family conversation that continued even after silence returned. And once something like that is spoken, it does not fully leave. What began as a simple conversation slowly turned into something deeper, something that could not be easily ignored anymore, because quiet truths rarely stay hidden forever. They return again, in thoughts, in memories, and in unexpected moments. There was a moment later when your name appeared again without anyone trying to bring it up. It was not planned, it was not expected. It simply came back naturally, as if unfinished thoughts had found their way to the surface again. The family member noticed the change immediately. The tone had shifted. There was less hesitation now, less effort to hide what was being felt. Because once something is spoken honestly even once, it becomes harder to deny it again. They asked a simple question. Are you still thinking about that person? And before the question even fully settled, the answer came. More than before. Those words carried weight because they showed that the feeling had not faded. It had grown. Feelings usually weaken when they are uncertain, but when they grow stronger after being acknowledged, it means something inside has become real enough to resist silence. It is no longer just passing thought. It is something that stays. There were more details that followed. They explained that they had begun noticing your presence differently, not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a quiet, persistent way that stayed with them after moments ended. A simple memory could appear during the day without warning. The way you once spoke a simple sentence. The way you looked away during a quiet moment. The way certain conversations felt unfinished even after they ended. These small things did not feel random anymore. They felt connected, as if they were building towards something not yet fully understood. Then came a question that changed the direction again. If you had the chance to say something honest right now, what would you say? The silence that followed was long. Not empty, but full of thought. The kind of silence that happens when someone is deciding between hiding and being honest. Finally, the answer came softly. I would say that you have been on my mind more than you know. Even after saying it, there was a moment of surprise, as if speaking it aloud made it feel more real than expected. Some truths feel heavier after they are spoken. They become harder to ignore once they exist in words. And that moment created a deeper level of honesty that could not be reversed. The conversation continued with another question. Why now? Why is this feeling stronger now? And the answer came slowly, but clearly. It changed when they realized your absence also had meaning, that certain days felt incomplete without you, that ordinary moments felt quieter when you were not part of them. And in that absence, your importance became clearer than before. People often do not understand value until something is missing. And that is exactly what happened here. Your presence became more noticeable in your absence, and that made everything feel different. Another question followed. Do you think this person would ever imagine how deeply you think about them? The answer was simple. Probably not. And that honesty showed something important. Much of what was felt had remained hidden, but hidden feelings do not stay invisible forever. They show themselves in tone, in pauses, in small changes that slowly become noticeable. Even if words are not spoken directly, emotions still find a way to express themselves. Then another thought was shared. Sometimes, when someone keeps returning to your thoughts without effort, it means something important is asking to be understood. That idea stayed in the air without resistance, because deep down, it already made sense. From that point, the conversation no longer felt like confusion. It felt more like acceptance. Not loud acceptance, but quiet understanding that something real was unfolding. Before the conversation ended, there was one final question. What is the one thing you have not fully admitted yet? And this time, there was no long pause, only honesty. I think hearing their name changes my entire mood. That sentence revealed everything without needing more explanation. Because when a name can change your emotional state, it means attachment has already formed deeply. It is no longer casual. It has become meaningful in a personal way. After that, the room grew quiet again. Even the family member understood that something serious had formed here. Not dramatic, not loud, but serious in a quiet and lasting way. And once something reaches that point, it does not stay still. It continues to grow quietly in the background. People become more aware, more reflective, more sensitive to small moments they once ignored. That is where things now stand. Your name is no longer just passing through thoughts. It arrives with meaning, with memory, with questions that were not there before, and with possibilities that feel harder to ignore. Even if nothing looks different on the surface, something has already changed underneath. Conversations like this always leave something behind, a shift that cannot easily return to what it was before. And what has begun quietly may continue to grow in ways that are not immediately visible. But it is already there, moving in thought, in memory, and in silence. Do not skip, because what followed was something they themselves did not expect to admit. There was a feeling in the room that something important was about to come out, something that had been held back for too long. The family member asked softly why this person keeps coming into your thoughts every time the future is mentioned. There was a brief smile, nervous and unsure, and then silence followed. But this silence was not like before. It was no longer confusion or avoidance. It was recognition, as if something had finally become clear inside them, even if they were not fully ready to explain it. After a few seconds, the answer finally came. It was simple, but it carried weight. Lately, I cannot imagine certain things without wondering if they would be there too. That one sentence changed everything in that room. It was no longer just a casual thought or passing feeling. It showed that this person had already started to exist inside their future in a natural way. And when someone starts appearing in your future thoughts without effort, it is never random. It means your presence has already crossed into a deeper place inside the mind, where only meaningful things remain. Something big was clearly building here, even if it was not fully understood yet. The family member immediately understood that this was no longer a temporary feeling. It had become something emotionally real. For the first time, they said it openly. You speak about this person as if they already matter deeply. There was no denial, no correction, only silence again. But this time it was different. It was honest silence, the kind that appears when truth does not need to be defended anymore. Stay till the end, because that small moment carried more meaning than anything said before. Sometimes, the simplest words reveal the biggest changes inside a person. From that moment, the conversation became more open and more honest than it had been at any point before. They admitted that recently they had started noticing details they used to ignore. Small things that once felt ordinary were now staying in their memory longer than expected. They noticed how certain moments with you stayed clearer than other memories. How simple interactions somehow felt brighter when remembered later in silence. Even the quiet moments, the ones that seemed empty at the time, now felt meaningful in a way they could not easily explain. Sometimes, even silence around you felt heavier, but not in a negative way, more like it carried meaning that words did not reach. Do not skip now, because another realization followed that surprised even the family member. They asked, "When did you first realize this was becoming serious?" The answer did not come immediately, because some feelings are only understood when you look back, not when you are living through them. Some truths are not seen in one moment. They build slowly, piece by piece, until suddenly you can no longer ignore them. Then the answer came. I think I understood it when I realized I keep replaying small moments that should have been ordinary. That answer changed the entire direction of the conversation. Because when the mind keeps returning to small moments, it means those moments were never actually small to the heart. A glance, a short word, a pause, a simple exchange. Things that looked normal at the time were now replayed again and again, as if they carried hidden meaning. Something big was still unfolding. The family member asked another serious question. If this person suddenly walked away completely, would it affect you? The room became completely still. No movement, no interruption, only silence that felt heavier than before. After a long pause, the answer came honestly, more than I want to admit. That single response revealed more than anything else before it. Because people can hide emotions easily when life continues normally, but they cannot hide them when they imagine absence. Absence reveals truth faster than presence ever can. And in that moment, it became clear how deeply this presence had already settled inside them. Stay till the end, because the atmosphere shifted again after that. The family member looked at them carefully and said, "Maybe what you feel is already much deeper than you planned." There was no argument after that. When truth is spoken clearly by someone else, denial becomes harder to maintain. And for the first time, they did not try to reduce what they felt. Instead, they admitted something else. Every time I decide not to think about them, something small reminds me again. It is a simple sentence, but it carries a deep truth. Real emotional presence does not disappear just because you try to ignore it. It returns on its own through small triggers, unexpected thoughts, quiet reminders, and moments of stillness when the mind is not distracted.